incredible, important aspect of military life during the American Revolution was music. Music was always present in a soldier's life in the Continental Army and the British Army. Musicians were used throughout the war for all sorts of different reasons. Every day when soldiers would wake up from the encampments, they'd be waking up to the fifes and drums of the musicians within the army. These bands would not only relieve monotony among the soldiers, but it would also raise their morale in these off times that were often spent in camp. When soldiers were marching, they would use fifes and drums to stay in step. They would also play tunes that were enjoyable for the soldiers to listen to as they were marching to break up the monotony of a long march. The music had many important qualities during the Revolution, but on the actual battlefield, it was an important communication device. As you can imagine, during a Revolutionary War battle, there are thousands of muskets going off and dozens of cannons. The field would have been covered with white smoke. You could hear the fife and the drumming over the din of battle. You could hear the drum beats that would tell the men when to make ready, take aim, and fire. They also had fifes that would play tunes that went to cease fire or relay different commands as far as marching the men on the battlefield. Tunes that were popularly played at that time have lived on in our collective memory, the most famous of that probably being the tune Yankee Doodle Dandy. We also have what was essentially a national anthem for the Continental Army at that time, and that was the tune Chester. And that was also frequently played by the fifes and drums at that time period. Now, these weren't combatants. In order to distinguish themselves on the battlefield, they would often wear different color coats than the regular soldiers. The coat I'm wearing is blue faced with red. The musicians who were out there with my regiment would have had red coats with blue facings. So oftentimes people will mistake them as British, but they are in fact musicians based on those regimental colors. The role of the musicians in the battlefield was really important. Now, who fulfilled these roles? Oftentimes it was people who were unable to carry a musket in the ranks. And this could include older people who were in the army. Generally, the militia would take anybody from ages 16 all the way to 60, or it could be younger people. Oftentimes it was young boys as young as 9 years old up to about 16 who would be in the drummer or fifer position. Now, you can imagine how scary it would be to be on a Revolutionary War battlefield with musket balls whizzing around, men on horses riding, smoke, cannons, and to only be armed with a fife or a drum. But they played a critical role in getting information up and down that battlefield, and they were very brave to be able to be out there on the battlefield serving their country.